everybody. Welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Swikle, owner of Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, as well as the co-founder of Tighten Up Training and the Moving Titan Retreat. And today we have a guest that I ran into for the first time since a Louis Massaro conference back in 2019. We were both in different places at that point in time. I ran into him at our last Moving Titan retreat in St. Pete, Florida, back in September. Today's guest is Gabe Gross. He is the owner of Hero Moving Hawaii, and they service the entire island of Oahu. So we've got somebody not from the mainland, but from the far outskirts of the United States in a very populated island of the country. Beautiful Hawaii. Last time I was just talking to Gabe, I was there. I ran the 2015 Honolulu Marathon, and we went and checked out the Pipeline Surf Tournament up on the North Shore where Gabe lives. But he is currently in a heavy growth mode, trying to dominate the island and basically service all of the islanders' needs when it comes to moving. Gabe, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Wade. Fun. Thanks.
Yeah. So you've got, a very interesting niche. You're on a island away from the mainland, heavily military dominated. You've obviously, everybody's heard about Pearl Harbor back in the day. There's still very active military bases operating in Hawaii, protecting the Pacific from all kinds of different things going on. But I'm curious to hear your story about how you got into moving. From what it sounds like, you got into the industry in 2005, and then you've branched off to start your own company, obviously, at least since 2019 when we first met at a Louis Massaro conference. Tell me a little bit about, in your own words, what got you here today, and what are you doing with Hero Moving out there in Hawaii?
Yeah, sure, man. I'm happy to talk about it. It's been the biggest thing I've ever done in my life, really, is to build a company, and it takes this renewed energy, right? Almost daily. I mean, once you set a plan, it's on a yearly, but just recovering that energy and coming back stronger over and over and over. And, sometimes you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and you're like, all this effort, but I feel like we're getting to a head now, and there's a culmination of our efforts as the team is getting bigger now and getting more done in a shorter amount of time, and really fine-tuning what we're doing. So I started working and moving in 2005. I had a friend who was a mover, and like I came from Brazil in 2003, and I worked in LA at a produce market for a few months, and it was all night, and I was like, dude, I can't do this. I can't sleep. I worked from 10 p.m. to 9 in the morning, slept during the day, and he was like, you know what, you're gonna make money $10.99. You make much faster money like that. I was like, okay, $12 at 10, $12 an hour at 9. And I went to work there, and I started doing, Southern California, drive to San Diego, do jobs. I learned the job pretty quick, and they made me a foreman, but just I never saw myself as a moving company owner or as a business that I wanted to grow in, because I encountered a lot of crooked people in the business, man, and I never wanted to be. I was like, nah. I saw a lot of companies do just screw customers over and walk in, with a low bid and then jack it up 3-4 times, and it didn't seem like something that I wanted to participate in. And so for years and years, I never saw myself in that position. I said, man, let me get out of this business. I got out in about 2007. I started working in film and production. And then in 2009, when everything crashed, was when I got back into moving, because there was a threat of a writer's strike, something like that, actors or writers, and then all the union work with production stopped completely, and I didn't work for 3 whole months. And I said to a friend of mine who was a trailer driver, I said, can you please get me some moving work? And I was in LA. He sent me, the company I started working with was in Phoenix, so I drove to Phoenix one night, got there, was working the next day, and the company really liked me because I was, I was at the bottom of the ditch. Well, what would you call it? But I started making money right away.
Bottom of the totem pole.
Total bottom. Yeah. I was like at the bottom. So I was hungry. I started making money for them right away, and they liked me. And about 6 weeks in, they pitched me, do you want to go to Hawaii and go manage our operation there? So all my experience up until then has been just as a foreman for a moving company. I knew how to run crews, drive, talk to customers, run bill of ladings, like sell, but I had no experience and no managerial experience. And they sent me out. I was managing 4 islands. So in Hawaii, between the islands, you have, the main island, that's Oahu. And then most business is done on Maui, Big Island, and then Kauai is the smallest one. All the other ones is not even worth mentioning because there's so little business coming out of there. I was managing like 15 guys, and I had to fly out, unload a container, fly to the next place, fly to the next place. So after about a year and something, I was really burned out, and I stopped working with them. I was like, man, I continued working with another company that I already knew from LA that was working out here for about 10 years. And when I gained a lot of experience, but it was really when I started studying in 2019, when we went to the event, was when it started to become more clear as an organized thing rather than the companies I was used to working with. It just seemed like very chaotic and also a really good way to build a bad reputation quickly. That's the impression I had of moving companies up until then, man. I was like, this is just a total shit show of a business or a field to be in, right? A lot of stress, a lot of work, and angry customers. Like, how do you do this right was really the question I had. And I started to understand, through Louis Massaro and now through a slew of companies that are networked together, a lot through you, through Eric, and just the last few years I've made a lot of friends in the business to where I have somebody to talk to about my aches and pains and just talk. And just being able to talk to somebody and communicate what's going on, that just is like a therapy session. Just that already takes away a lot of the angst and just the stress of the day-to-day stuff and just, hey, this is normal. And we've been able to build a really good reputation that I'm really proud of. Just the team I work with have helped, they've been out there making everything happen, and we've managed to build something good in the last 6 years, and now we're ready to grow. So in a nutshell, I only became like my ambition grew when I realized that I could do this right and do this in a way that was honorable to other people. Because the impression I had of the moving industry was not that in the past. So it's a big change.
You're absolutely right. And when I got into moving, I never thought that it would become like a full service legitimate moving company. When I had started off, hence the name Two College Brothers, I was a college kid just doing it as a job, and I worked for a local company that they sent me out in an unmarked truck with an unmarked trailer. Met the owner maybe twice at the time over the course of 6 months. We would just show up at his yard, pick up this truck, and go to somebody's house and then take cash. And I was like, this is all there is to this industry. Like, he's obviously making a lot of money doing it. Like, if he can do it this way, I feel like there's so much opportunity to like do something similar the right way.
Mhm.
And, I started off hiring college kids that I knew and servicing a lot of college student stuff. And I thought it was going to be this like proprietary, different type of company that I hated calling it a moving company, but it was. And then, until I realized that, that business model was flawed. And there's a reason that, traditional moving companies do certain things the way they do them. But at the same time, there's still all this opportunity to improve the customer service and the caliber of people that are going into people's homes and handling their belongings. And the moving industry just really hadn't adopted a lot of the technology that was emerging at that point in time, let alone, the technology that is now available, 15 years later. But, it was just, they were doing things the same way they'd always done it for 100 years. And that wasn't really a good way to do it. They created this whole stigma around this business, and I, it almost turned me away. And I think it turned away a lot of talented, otherwise really good people that could have gone into it, because for those exact reasons that you're mentioning, they didn't want to get involved in the chaos and the mess that the industry was kind of built around for so long. But I've also, on the same side of that coin, seen this revolution over since I've been in it, the last 15 or so years of really good people coming into this business. And there's a lot of old dogs that are starting to age out. And, I was just at the ATA conference yesterday, and there's just a fresh energy in that room. I mean, when I went to AMSA back around those same time as where we met first at Louis Massaro, it was still that, kind of stale multifamily generational workforce that had been doing things the same way for 100 years. And these, kids inherited the family business, and, some kids didn't want to do it, and they just kind of were just very passive with it, and it was just kind of running on its own. But we've seen this huge emergence of young, fresh energy breaking into our industry. That, I mean, the opportunities of networking that I've found, just like yourself, from going to these events and surrounding myself with some of these people, it's really inspiring to see the differences that the industry's now bringing on. And people are embracing technology. They care about the customer more now than they ever have, because you have to be transparent today to break through, because everything can go online. Somebody can there's entire Facebook groups and YouTube channels dedicated to tearing down old moving companies because of how they've done things. And anybody can go leave you a Google review or post something on social media. And if you're not being held accountable and holding your team accountable and yourself accountable, it could totally destroy a reputation. So, I love to see this all shift and us work together to surround ourselves with the people that are erasing that stigma that our parents grew up with and around the moving business, and just bring this fresh take. And it's really cool to hear, that you're in Hawaii. Everybody thinks of Hawaii as like this, like hang ten, like surf, laid back, cool community, but there is real business that gets done out there. What's been your, I gotta think like your market is just kind of probably different than almost anywhere else in the country. Tell me a little bit about the market in Hawaii. Like, what's been your experience growing a moving company out there? Is it harder? Is it easier? Is it just different?
I would say it's different in that we quickly maxed out. In the beginning, I said it's going to be a local moving company. I want to build a reputation and build a household name about being a local company, because my previous experience was always moving people off the island. And then who's going to talk about you if they're not here, right? So I said, well, and then gaining people's trust is much more a day-to-day conversational thing and happens over personal connections than just online advertising. I spent years working hard on expanding just the online advertising until I got to the point I'm like, you know what? I need to put my face out there, and if people can see me, and I started putting put my picture up on the website, let me talk to people, let me convey that I'm a person that you're gonna meet, at Costco or in the water surfing. Like, I'm a person that's here every day. And I want to keep it, like I said, as an honorable experience, as something we're getting people out of many times difficult transition, and really take that, in seriously, that most of the time when we're dealing with people, it is a divorce, a death, an eviction, something bad. And so we've been able to have fantastic interactions with people through that approach, like not just the business approach. I'd be like, wow. And anytime I want to reach out to a person and get access to the backstory of why they're moving, they become friends with the company. They love, our guys get tipped like, man, really, really good. So I would say the difference in Hawaii is that to gain people's trust, they want you to spend some time with them. Like, they don't want a 10-minute conversation. Sometimes, they want to spend a while with you until they get that impression. And especially, I think the long version of that is growing the business. Now, relationships that start, maybe I joined the Chamber of Commerce like 3 years ago, and now it's starting to like people see me over and over and over, and then there's a touch point here and there, and then a friend of theirs talks to them, and then that's when I start seeing actual results from it. So it's a long game. Whereas I think, something like, I used to live in LA, it seemed like you could just open your doors, get 50 odd reviews from anywhere, like your friends, and you're off to the races. And I always like, wow, it seems like here it takes a bit more to have a successful business, but also it's forced me to grow personally. And then having it means The business, it exposes me as a person. Like I'm out there, like my face is out there. All of a sudden I have less privacy maybe. But it also, if I have a good reputation, which we work on maintaining, it also gives me access to the community a lot better, because then everybody, you're getting talked about and everybody's family for the most part, right? The people from here, they're all cousins and brothers, sisters, uncles. You end up having access, having people's trust. And that is something that I can work with for the long run, becoming a household name.
Hey movers, it's Wade Swikle, and you're listening to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you've ever wasted money on marketing to the wrong homes, listen up. This is why I use USA Home Listings. They're the only platform in the moving industry built by movers that not only has new home listings and under contract listings updated daily, but now offers enhanced data that can eliminate vacant homes and give you phone numbers and emails for both homeowners and realtors, giving you multiple ways to connect and close more jobs. Their vacancy AI tool removes empty homes so there are no more wasted mailing efforts, and their Tier 2 data takes it further, providing highly accurate contact details for both homeowners and realtors for email, phone, and social outreach. The result? Higher conversions, stronger ROI, and more book jobs with less spend. Check out usahomelistings.com because it's where real movers get real leads.
And then it's true that, the moving business is notorious for not having that, not being trustworthy, and having here and there shady characters. And then that's what people are kind of used to expecting. It's like I always say it's like mechanics. There's a lot of them out there, but there's only one or two you're going to meet that you want to really do business with consistently.
That's so funny because I say the exact same thing. It's like when you're trying to find a good mechanic, I mean, you drive on the street, you see them everywhere, but I'm going to ask somebody typically, who do you know of a good mechanic? Or I'll go online and I'll look at reviews. We just moved our warehouse and our old mechanic was too far away from where our new facility is now. And I went online and I looked at the Google reviews, and there were two with very good reviews in the area. One had 545 of them, and I think like a 4.8 or 4.9, and one had 212 or something like that, and they were 4.7 or 4.8. They were so, and I ended up going with the one with the most reviews. And I think maybe their scores were exactly the same, and one just had more reviews, and I chose them. I didn't know anybody to ask in that area who a good one, and they've turned out to be great. But I feel like moving is very much the same way. You're going to ask your realtor, you're going to ask your neighbors, your coworkers, your colleagues, your friends, your family. Who did you use last time, and did they have a good or a bad experience? And then you're going to go online and you're going to see what other people's experience looks like. And it's a very referral driven business. And it's a very people driven business. Like, you want to do business. You want to know who's working on your car. You want to know who's coming into your home and going through your drawers. And I think back in the old days, in small communities, that was how people did business. Every community had, the guy for whatever it was that they needed, the mechanic, the car sales guy, the insurance guy, whatever. And then, cities started to grow. You had all this urban sprawl, and people went towards the yellow pages. And all of a sudden they were a faceless company that would open up a multi-page spread in the yellow pages, and their phone would start ringing. And it was who could have the biggest display in the yellow pages was who was going to be the biggest company. And then, the internet, Google took out the yellow pages, and everything was like, okay, who can build the biggest website? Who can have, then social media came up. Who can have the most social media stuff? But I think it's come full circle back, because now all of those online channels are so crowded. They're so noisy, and people are back to square one, which is wanting to do business with other people. And I talk a lot about that in my book, is just becoming a pillar of your community, where you can hold your head up high when you're walking in the grocery store wearing a company shirt. And people go, I think you guys moved me. And I think any moving company owner probably has that like, oh shit moment where it's like trying to gauge, like, was this a good move? Which, if 99% of the time they're a good move, I've lost that fear a little bit, but there was a while there where I wasn't 100% sure we were doing a great job. But, once you really dial in training systems, processes, learning the best practices, building a team culture, then, you start to be able to hold your head up high because that it's a great experience. And if it was an issue with whatever the move may have happened, it's a occasional thing. It's a great opportunity to address that person face to face, to where they're able to now see that you're just a real person buying eggs and milk like the rest of the people in the store, and that you want to take care of them, and that, you're sorry to hear those things. But the idea is that, those are few and far between. And it's random people walking up to you on the street when you're wearing your shirt saying, "You guys moved me. The guys did a great job." And it makes you feel really good and proud of what you built. And, I've kind of come full circle on trying not to be the face of the business. And that was probably around the time where you met me, and things were not, I was still figuring a lot of it out, and it wasn't the best season. And I made an initiative to go in and make my face the business. And it helps hold yourself accountable. It helps hold your team accountable. You earn respect from your team, and you build that culture because you're leading them from the front lines, where they know that they're not only doing this for themselves, but they're doing this for you. And it makes you proud. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you get in trouble and your parents might get mad. But what's really bad is when your parents are disappointed. And when you can have a culture where it's, people trying not to disappoint you versus, just trying not to make you mad, totally kind of shifts that perspective with things. So that's awesome. What kind of networking, what kind of grassroots things are you doing to basically be that face of the company over there?
We started when I first opened the company. In 2019, I got a bit ahead of myself because I wanted to start and be at 3 million. So all these years, it's like these 6 years have been just me getting used to the idea that it's going to take more time, and it's okay. It's healthy that it takes more time, because it has to be really well figured out, and just training people to be performing at a good level just takes time. They're going to make mistakes. And so I started with BNI here in my neighborhood, and the North Shore BNI was really cool, and it got me in front of people right away. And it didn't grow the company a bunch, but at least it gave me I learned how to talk to people and talk about my business, and the whole elevator pitch thing. I started to pick that up like after, I don't know, 10 weeks that I did. I was like, okay, I'm good at it. And I started just getting, you create a character around yourself, and you animate it, and you just talk about it like it's really easy after a while to do. So that was a really cool thing about BNI. And then we also joined West Oahu Chamber of Commerce, and also SBA. I can't say enough good things about the SBA. What an underutilized resource. And this even to moving company owners. Like, they have a free mentorship called SCORE that everybody should be using, and they're going to take you from zero to wherever you tell them you want to go. They're going to give you, I went through some of their coaching, and it was amazing. And they also create these small business events where you like speed networking, speed dating for businesses. And so that's been my experience. Like, the SBA is amazing, man. And nobody talks about it, and it's also free. So it's
Wow. That's interesting, because when I first started, I remember hearing about SCORE and meeting with somebody over there. And I don't know if it was very strong in Gainesville, where I was at the time. And I think a lot of people hear SBA and they think of like the loan, Small Business Administration loan program that a lot of banks offer. But that's interesting to hear that they have that resource in your market, and they probably have it in mine too. And most markets where they connect people like that. And you've found that to be pretty valuable.
Absolutely. So let's say, Wade, after 20 years in business, you made all your money, you're happy, you're like, well, now I want to give back. So these are people who are in the SBA as successful business guys from all walks of business, and then they're going to coach you and mentor you into your own business. So they're going to find somebody that is related to what you do, and then not only connect you with the SBA, also loans if you need one. It's much easier for them to give you a loan if they've been coaching you over whatever, a year or two, and say, okay, this person, we built the business plan, they know what they're doing, it's going to be a lot easier if that's where people want to go. Well, I actually got an SBA loan during one of the idle loans. It helped me grow a lot, and I never thought I was going to have to take one, but it was a really good one. But yeah, these three have been really good. And then as I grow, one thing that's helped me a whole lot just to grow personally and in business is Clemmer. That's like a personal development kind of course. And I met a lot of people through that locally. So different places. And I find that people who are working on developing themselves personally, and for me, it came because of the business. The business got me out of my comfort zone and put me into like, here, you're going to train physically because you need energy. And now everything else that grows from there. Now I have the energy. I can do all these other things and not get tired. And why do I need a network? I'm not necessarily the most outgoing, networking guy, but now I am because of that. So just the business forced me to develop as a person. So there's many different networks to join. If the definitely BNI, they're always calling like, hey, come to an event. They're a bunch of really cool people, and they're all about givers gain, which is connecting. What you bring to the table, you're going to get back. So if I can connect realtor so-and-so or cleaning lady so-and-so with a client, then the next week they're going to bring me people, and that can just snowball as well. So it's fun, and it also becomes funner over time when I get to really know people, and then we become friends. And it was all because of the business originally, but it just makes life richer also. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really true. I did BNI for 4 years in Gainesville, and it's a great place to start with, if you're new to business, if you're, not sure where to start, BNI provides a really structured environment for you to get into a room with other business owners and prominent people in your community. And they have a lot of training too, public speaking, elevator pitches, but it all comes down to that golden rule is, the law of reciprocity. If you help this person grow their business, then in turn, that'll all come back to you and ultimately grow your business. I think that's one of the best ways to become successful is help other people get what they want and help them become successful. And if you can become known for that in your community, then everybody wants to see you succeed and they're cheering for you, and you make friends that way. That, the network is your net worth, and you never know who knows the next person you're trying to meet or who the next customer might be. It might be the person sitting next to you. It might be somebody that they know. It could be a neighbor, it could be a friend of a friend. I get just hit up all the time on social media from people who need to move because I post a lot about moving, and everybody that I'm friends with for the most part knows I have a moving company and that I'm the guy that, most people don't know another mover. And if you've got 2,000 friends on Facebook and you're posting it all the time or wearing a shirt out in public, where people see your brand out there and they tie it to you, and you have a conversation with a random person walking down the street, you just never know where that $1 million, nugget is going to be. And just getting yourself out there is an excellent way to make it happen. I'm kind of curious because Honolulu, you said, I think we were chatting before we got on when we started recording, it's about 1.1 million people on the island of Oahu. And you had mentioned that about 3/4 of the moves, I think you said 30 to 45,000 households move a year, and about 3/4 of those are military related. Tell me a little bit about like what your service line, your specific niche offerings are. Do you get involved with the military work? Are you mostly serving that other 25% of the market that's just residential that live within the island locally? Do you do international moves or island to island moves? I'm kind of just curious how the whole, how your market works out there.
So a lot. We do inter-island moves as well, local, inter-island, and interstate and international. So we have a whole network around the whole country and a lot of countries, to Japan. We've shipped to Brazil also, like exclusive container. The two that we've done a few of, we haven't done a whole lot of them, but yeah, to Japan and Brazil. And also to like Samoa and Guam. we have capability to ship stuff out there. So it's a mix because service members, they get their VA loans, they move more than your average person. So we end up doing a lot of local moves for service members. And during the PCS season, what happens is the big companies that have contracts.
And what's PCS for the listeners?
Change of service station, something like that. That's the military, the acronym. So that's just a military move.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Is that like DP3 and PCS, are those kind of tied together with military?
So most of the time, the companies that have the military contract, they're super busy in the summer, and then people, let's say they got to be off island 1 month, but their actual move is happening 2 months from then. We offer warehousing services as well. We can store. We end up picking up their job as a local move, although we're still going to tag everything and wrap it. It goes into our warehouse, and then the company that the actual military company is going to come by in a month or two and pick up their stuff.
I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos, including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up Training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up.
Yeah. So we end up taking a lot of the overflow business because in the PCS season, the big companies are doing all the military stuff. So people use us a lot for either their DD moves, their DIY, which means the government gives them a certain amount of money to move. And then if we come under what they got, they end up keeping a little bit of money. So we get a lot of customers like that. Oh, this is my stipend or whatever you call it. And then, yeah, if we can quote them under a bit, they end up making a couple dollars through that process. But we are looking for contract work now because just the steadiness of the work is going to be really good. So some kind of delivery where we've been almost a year now working, trying to get everything lined up with Lowe's, which is going to keep, I see it, even though it's low profit, it's going to keep the guys busy. It's a good way to start the guys training. And that means I'll always have a roster of guys rather than having, one day I got 3 jobs, the next day I got 0 jobs. Now I have at least a core group of guys that they will, 10 guys if I'm running 3 trucks, and then I can add. The problem with the seesaw effect is not having anybody. As long as I shrink, but I still got a good core group that can run my 3 trucks, I'm good, and I can expand from there. So just having a bit of contract work is going to help us a lot in that sense.
Yeah, tell me a little bit how you do like the island to island moves or international shipments. That's an area that I'm very unfamiliar with. We've loaded some shipping containers that we were contracted out, or maybe unloaded some, but that's kind of where it stops. How does that whole logistical world work? Whether it's just going intrastate, which in your case is going to be going to a whole other island, or back to the mainland, or to somewhere like Japan. How do those segments work?
Yeah, so there's that also adds a huge amount of cost, right? But there's one company that only does inter-island. They're called Young Brothers. And so when we're taking your 1 bedroom from your house, we're going to have to either take it to the port and load it into a container, or we're going to have that container trucked over to our yard and loaded over there. It's going to show up on the other end, and we have to have a crew. Either, we have partner companies in other islands that do that, but it adds a good chunk of money and adds that component, damages, stuff like that. Maybe that container has a hole in it. You don't know. Maybe the forklift driver dropped it like a foot from the ground. And so it adds an extra. People who live here for a long time, they get really good at being shipping customers because they understand the process. I find that it makes it easier for us to work with because they already understand the logistics of it and everything more so than the regular, just people in the mainland about that.
So are you teaming up with like this company, Young Brothers? I'm assuming they have like barges and you just pick up the items in one of your box trucks, take it to a port and load it onto a container, or are they having a shipping container dropped somewhere? How does that work?
So the containers get moved around on chassis, right? They get put on these 5-foot tall chassis with wheels and tractor trailered around the island. Specifically, they have a yard, but they have very strict access rules for their yard. Very strict, but we stop at this time, we go to this and that. So it's a bit inconvenient because they're also not staffed. They don't have any competition here, so they work however they like, and hopefully they're not going to watch this. they could be doing
well, is that something that you could be a competitor in, or is there a lot of capital or licensing, red tape?
Yeah, dude. It's massive. It's FOSS. It's massive. It's like billions of dollars, and it is unionized, and they have no competition. So if you need to move anything, you can pay like $7,000 to ship a box truck from 500 miles down the lane, right? It's super expensive, and the prices are inflated because it's union as well. And that's it. It's just how it's always been. And that's how.
Do they own the barge that the shipping container is going on? Okay, so there's a lot of capital involved in that. I'm wondering, if say you were to go and buy, your own boat and you equipped it to be able to stick a, like a ferry. I think of Vancouver has like these ferries that you can drive. You drive your car onto it. They take you across, and then you can drive your car off of it. Is that even possible that somebody can? Happened. Like people can get their own boats and run their own boats.
Have you ever heard of the super ferry in the Pacific Northwest? They actually built 2 big fat catamarans to do exactly that, to compete with Young Brothers. And what happened is what usually happens, because Hawaii is like a mix of union, government, and big business. If you're trying to come in and undercut that, they're going to come at you with media, with community support, which really is just some dudes that work for the union talking. And what they did to the super ferry was a way to do that much faster. And instead of charging hundreds, let's charge you $60 to load your car into a barge. And of course, with the catamaran, it's going to go do the same route a lot faster. And what they said, they blocked the super ferry in the port of Kauai, I think for like a month, until it became impossible for them to handle their expenses. And they made a public, what is it called? Not a public service announcement kind of thing, like a community.
Like a press release?
Media effort. Yeah, they said that, hey, these catamarans are slicing whales in half, and they're making the islands that, keep the country kind of thing. We don't want this much tourism. We don't want this and that. And they blocked the entrance of the port. And so the super ferry guys just got strong-armed out of the business. This happened right when I got to Hawaii in 2008, 2009. I was like, wow, really?
Interesting.
So that's how the cookie crumbles out here. It's very strong arm. And whoever has that, they're not gonna make it easier for anybody. And this is just how it is.
Interesting.
They've been around for like 100 years, and it's not everybody's game, man. It's whoever's in there, and that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable
they've got a monopoly on it. I've thought about, so I have a boat, and most of the islands around us here in Florida, they've got bridges to them, but there are a few that don't, and you can only access by ferry or boat. And I've thought, if we ever get a call, how hard would it be to like load load items up on them. I mean, my boat's not that big, but like, put things on the boat, run it a piece at a time back and forth, to one of these places. But it just doesn't sound like, I mean, you're dealing with the Pacific Ocean out there. It's a whole other animal. I'm sure it's different, but so you essentially have to partner with one of these companies that have the infrastructure in place that kind of control the politics and everything else around it. And so basically you get a call from somebody who wants to move to Maui. You basically you'd line up a shipping container with them. Do you go pick that up? Do they deliver it to you or to the shipper's house?
Most of the time, we're just adding the cost of trucking to our yard so we don't have to deal with the port scheduling.
Okay.
So they bring it to our yard. We're going to transload it, cross-load it from the trucks to the container. It'll get to the other island within a few days. Like usually the pickup and the delivery happens within a week to 10 days. We can do that, even though it takes a few hours to
they probably have
the transportation itself, but just loading, unloading, all of that, because it's a bunch of barges and a container yard. And then, so there's one company that does only inner island. That's Young Brothers. And then there's the company that does the mainland bit. And they're two separate companies, and they have an agreement between each other, even though they both have barges and containers, not to mess with each other's business. And that's how it's been forever. And it's super expensive. And also the Jones Act, of course, which says that no foreign built ship can dock in a U.S. something like that. So it works for Puerto Rico and it works for Hawaii, which means that I'm going to take all this from China and I'm going to go to LA, right? And then I'm going to charge you to offload that container in LA, load it into another container, and then bring it to Hawaii. And so you're paying twice for the same thing because of the Jones Act. So in Hawaii, we pay dearly. Like everything here, a good chunk of the price of things. And that's why Hawaii is so expensive.
Interesting.
It's crazy, man. Yeah,
that is crazy. What a world. I was actually just in Puerto Rico and I was kind of wondering the same thing, because I thought I looked at some properties there and I love Puerto Rico. It's kind of like Hawaii. It's got some mountains and things. Hawaii is bigger and bigger mountains and all that. But yeah, I've always kind of wondered how that works. And so once the shipping container gets to the other island, do you have to contract out another moving company that's only on that island to do the final mile delivery from the port to the new home?
Yeah, we have a couple companies that are reputable that we work with. Shout out to James with Swikle Movers there.
Yeah, Maui. I think I've met him.
And he does all our Maui stuff. And then, when he needs to send stuff over here. So all our inner island customers, we do them on this end and he'll do them on Maui.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And what about the military? I knew you started to kind of talk a little bit about that. You mentioned that that's like 3/4 of the business. Do you get a big, a cut of that, or how do you market to the military and they contract you out independently with their stipends, or do you have agreements in place where you're actually getting paid by the U.S. government, or is it just like, we've got a military base here and we don't do anything directly with the government, but what's happened sometimes is somebody's moving on or off base, or they live near the base and then they get some kind of a stipend and then they hire us privately and then we get paid by them with their moving expenses covered. And that's the way I prefer to do it, because there's so much red tape with the military, with our Air Force base here. But
True.
Is that kind of like what you do, or do you have any like actual agreements with the military?
So not yet. And we have a couple companies here the companies that have the prime contract, they cut the profit margin for themselves. They're kind of just paying you for labor. So you're going to kind of run a truck and you're not going to make a lot of money. That's the nice part about it is your guys will be busy, extremely. And they're going to keep you busy for a long time. But I'm still small and I'm still looking for maximum profitability with what we do. That being said, I would love to bite off a piece of the military action. I would even, I was trying to find a local military contract because they're moving between bases here like crazy as well. The interstate one, it's taken, right? And then the companies who have it, they hire smaller companies or companies that's just like a guy without sales or marketing or anything that just owns a couple of trucks and run their crews like on 1099 kind of thing. Because I worked for somebody else for 10 years, and kind of it makes you a little bit powerless, right? Being depending on somebody else. And that I didn't want to go into that right away. Now that I'm kind of following a rule where I don't want more than 25 to 30% of my business to come just from one
Smart.
source. So I'm going to do that in stages. But yeah, I would love to be part of that game.
Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part? This resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email.
It's been pretty weird, to tell you the truth, hiring people. I really tightened up our hiring process. And honestly, I don't know what's going to happen with hiring, because it just, I don't feel, I know people need to work, but it doesn't seem like they do anymore.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you mentioned how expensive everything is. What do you have to pay a mover or a driver to be competitive, to get good talent over there? I mean, over here, we pay usually between $18 and $25 an hour, 18 on the helper side, up to 25, sometimes a little bit more on the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
What's that look like? I have to imagine that you probably have to pay a lot more to just give people a livable wage with how much more expensive everything is over there.
A livable wage, means that just people have to either be living with their partner, right? Girlfriend, boyfriend, or living with family, because there's just no way that you can just spend, you can't charge. The Oahu local moving companies on average are charging more than anybody else in the mainland, like just because things are more expensive here. But you can't possibly pay that much. We're starting guys at 20, all the way up to like 27, 28, plus, the guys that are smart and can sell and make commission, they can make a lot more money through that.
Okay.
So, but really, if you're just doing labor, you can make good money when we're busy, but it means that, there's a limitation to that. You need to learn to sell to be able to maximize your gains. So it's tough, man. I think in this whole thing, it's tougher for a small business owner, because you're like, okay, so we're squished between the government, that started paying people not to work, and then why would you make half the money you would make working for somebody from the government, and then you can come up with some hustle, whatever, sell weed, and then make the rest of the money. And you're like, okay, yeah, I understand that. Everybody has to survive.
Isn't weed recreational out in Hawaii? Is that still a black market thing?
You would think so, but it's still not. It's still something you have dispensaries and stuff, but it's a tough position to be in. I find that, even when I got into, and even, 10 years ago, I'd post up an ad on Craigslist. I'd have guys like going around, this is a bunch of people. Now you post an ad. It's not only the process is longer of just filtering through. We learn to get better at how we interview and talk to people and stuff. And they're just, if you don't have a phone number and email, we don't even want to talk to you, man. It's like, please don't, right? You need at least a driver's license, a phone number, a good phone number, and an email address. So that's already like a small criteria.
Those are some of the fundamental responsibilities of an adult. And I think that was discussed at our last retreat. I don't remember who was saying, maybe Eric Works, but basically they're not even hiring helpers, whoever it was. It might not be Eric, but somebody said this. They're not even hiring helpers if they don't have a driver's license. A lot of movers will only hire, people that have a driver's license as mover or as drivers, and then, they'll hire anybody as a helper. But if it's an indicator, as one of the things that is one of the easiest responsibilities as an adult is to maintain a valid driver's license.
Driver's
And if you
license,
can't
yeah.
be responsible enough to do that, the thought process is that you can't be responsible enough to work for my company where you're going to be handling expensive furniture
Yeah.
and dealing with customers and going inside their homes. So, but the whole thing with hiring, it's just a numbers game. I mean, you might get 100 applications, sift through them, you weed out 50 of them, you reach out to those, you might schedule 20 interviews out of the 50 relevant applications because they're also applying to other places. Out of those 20,
Hmm.
maybe 10 show up. Out of the 10 that show up, maybe 5 of them are hireable. You bring them all on, and then maybe 1 or 2 make it through the onboarding process and end up working out. So, I mean, it's just something that we talk about every single week is we look at our roster and we look at who did we interview this. We're interviewing every single week. Who did we interview? How many applicants are we bringing in for an orientation? We're doing an orientation every single week. Who fell off the last week? Who's staying on? And we've got a core group of guys, 10, 15 guys that have worked with us for years. But there's always like those, that rotating door and replacing the weak links. When you can hire on an ongoing basis, you're not handcuffed to the guys that are your weaker guys that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing consistently and providing the level of service that you need. But it also lets you have a bench roster of people that you can take on a lot more moves during the busy times, because everybody knows that everybody likes to move when everybody else wants to move. When the kids are out of school, on the weekends, at the end of the month, and in the summertime. And so even in the winter, we're still hiring, and we might, send an extra guy out on a job site and not charge the customer for it because we're using that to train him so that we can make that money back at the end of the month when it's going to pick up and he's got the experience of working with this crew. Or maybe we just send him out to a load, because that's where the magic happens when it comes to getting good quality experience is on the load. Then we can save that
Hmm.
margin on the unload, but it also helps us finish jobs faster and we can stack more stuff. And it gets those greenhorns a lot of experience, so that we can now at the end of the month take on more work and charge higher prices because everybody else around us is booked up.
Correct. Wait, do you have somebody specific? Is it your dispatcher? Is it your ops manager that has like that's their game every day to improve and train and I mean also teach guys, right? If how can you maximize your experience working for a moving company? Well, you can get really good
Mm-hmm.
tips. We give you bonuses for reviews. Like I said, if you're only making hourly, you can actually maximize that and make decent money, but you have to, as every day, go there with that chasing that carrot kind of perspective. Like, I'm going to make the best of this. I'm going to make the best of my interaction with the customer, and that'll grow our value as a crew. Like talking about, in the position of the worker there, have that vision, right? How can I go to every job and make the maximum amount of money? Well, I need to make myself important
Mm-hmm.
in the customer's eyes by how I work and how I behave and things like that.
Yeah, we've got Ashley on my team who her title is chief of staff. She's kind of my right hand gal, but she also serves a big HR function. She does a lot of our marketing. She posts the job ads, and then she goes through the resumes and reaches out to the people that look like they'd be good candidates. Does a quick screen of them and then invites them in for an interview. And usually our operations manager will do the interview. And we keep a rolling spreadsheet. We call it our mover database of everybody we've ever hired or interviewed. And we ask them some set questions in that spreadsheet, and then either green light them, yellow light them if they're like, maybe we'll see how they turn out, or red light them, which is like, no way. And then, if they're approved from that interview, we'll submit for the background check. And then if they're a driver, we do a drug test and have them get a medical card. And then we assign them Tighten Up training, which we've white labeled as Two College Brothers University. And so that's the first thing that they need to complete. It's kind of the weed out process. So we're not wasting time and giving a
Hmm.
uniform to somebody that's never going to work out. They got to complete the assigned modules in there before the orientation. And we usually run an orientation on Fridays. And so basically, if we interview somebody on a Tuesday or Wednesday, they've got a couple of days to get background check stuff completed, and complete, it's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours worth of training. And we advertise $100 signing bonus. So, but they have to complete that training and attend orientation to get the $100. So that helps us.
That's
Yeah, it
cool.
helps us kind of make it. So we're basically paying them for the training, and it also gives the job a little bit more of an appeal because we're giving them that signing bonus to complete the training. Then they come in for the orientation and we kind of see where they're at. Have they ever moved before? And honestly, I try not to hire a lot of people with a lot of moving experience, maybe a little bit of moving experience, but the career movers, there's usually a reason why they're career movers and they come with some bad habits. So, but we want to have that training set up to where we could bring in somebody that has no moving experience, but a great attitude and that's willing to learn. And so it weeds out the people that aren't willing to do that. They come in, we see where they're at the orientation, let them push a dolly around. We have them wrap some furniture and we keep working with them for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours that day, rehashing the stuff from their training, getting them set up in our systems, payroll, smart moving, all that stuff, seeing where they're at, where they need to work on. And then we assign them a mover mentor, which is, I think, an idea from Lewis back in the day, where they have somebody that they can ask questions to, confide in. It's not a manager. It's somebody that, we try to get them to work with that person, but otherwise it's just kind of somebody it's like a big brother. And we'll put them out as an extra set of hands-on jobs or on loads or, easier stuff. Maybe they're just running boxes for a few weeks and we ask the crew chiefs of the jobs that the new guys go out on, to answer like 3 to 5 questions on how they did based off of attitude, competency. Are they wearing the uniform throughout the day, all that stuff. Usually it's a 2 to 3 week process from the time they submit their application until the time where we feel confident to send them out, on a job as a build, guy 100%. And, there's exceptions here and there, but for the most part, that's the process that we follow. And just helps keep our existing guys on their toes because they know that we've got new people always ready to take their spot if they, start slacking. But it also lets us take on more work and just build a roster of people that, sometimes it's just a part-time person that we bring on and we get trained up through that process, but it helps us fill the gaps when we have busier times. And we just need, somebody occasionally, maybe for 10 to 20 hours a week to just fill the gaps in the schedule and that sort of a thing.
One thing that would be really interesting for me to understand is for a company, let's say like mine, okay, I have a limited number of people to manage everybody else. But there's specific things that now I'm actually addressing. Like up until now, I had a dispatcher that did sales and also jumped on the truck. He's like Mr. Gold, the guy's man. He's the MVP. Through and through. He's been doing this for years. I said, Jordan, we're going to move you into sales manager and I need to find a dispatcher. So at what point in the company can you afford and keep, of course, because you're going to shrink in the slow season a little bit, it's like for you to keep that person that has a set of duties there. And also when it's not as busy or there's not as many guys to train, where do you reutilize that person or how do you keep them busy as well? Or you just cut their hours? Like, to me, that's the thing. It's like, if I'm bringing more people on the team for a bit, train them and then not being able to use them or, and I see that, okay, the sales manager is an essential one. And then next past that is somebody to train, aside from the dispatch, of course, but to train and keep the crews on their toes and be managing personnel. That's kind of a full-time position as well, just on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's definitely a balance. We always look within our company when we have a spot open up for like sales or, our dispatcher. Pretty much everybody in our company has either worked as a mover for us or a mover somewhere else. And, the only person who hasn't worked as a mover for us is really our GM, ops manager, Jeff. He's 67 years old. He's worked as a mover before, and he's probably gone out and moved a few things here and there, but all of our salespeople, our dispatcher, they all were movers at one point. And we try to give them that path of advancement within the company because it shows that, all the other guys that they can get off the trucks if they want. Some guys, they
Hmm.
love being on the trucks. They, might run interstate jobs, or they're getting, pretty decent pay. They're getting tips. We have a bonus program we call Brother Bucks, which is basically mover bonus points from what Lewis used to talk about. We made some tweaks to it, but they get that monthly
Hmm.
bonus. It takes into account 5-star reviews and things like that. So, they can make decent money when you factor all that in. I mean, it comes out to a lot of times $30, $35 an hour when you factor in tips and bonuses, sometimes even more than that. Time and a half for overtime, that sort of a thing. And then we give them a gym membership. We've got a corporate account with Crunch Fitness where we pay like 20 something bucks a month per gym membership. So that's any
Nice.
full-time movers get a free gym membership. We do 50% health care subsidies. So health, vision, dental, they pay 50% right out of their paycheck. And then we cover the other 50 so that they can have that. We'll reimburse for chiropractor visits. And then, just cultural stuff. We try to do fun stuff with the team to where it's, they're part of a family. They're part of like this brotherhood almost. And just really try to perpetuate that culture where people are friends with one another and they get to work with their friends, you know, even if they don't know them coming in. By the time they're with us for a
Hmm.
few months, they make friends and have people to live with, hang out with, whatever. We'll do weekly mover meetings where we do more additional training, stuff like that. We're always trying to find little perks to keep them interested, because the best movers tend to come from the people we already have, referrals, people that they
True.
know. So we want to make sure that they're all
Yes.
happy.
And then, so at what point in your growing your business were you able to afford all of this? Because I would love to be able to afford and be like, guys, there's more in here than just your paycheck. At the moment, I can't even think of that. So
Yeah,
at one
I would
point,
say once you
yeah.
start to get around close to 2 million in annual revenue is where you start to be able to delegate and have like more specific roles for more people in the company. I mean, you can do it at about a million or a little less than a million. It's tougher though to keep margins and have, our salespeople basically work on strict commission. We do a commission draw, pretty much exactly how Lewis had it set up, maybe a few tweaks to it, but they get paid on a biweekly basis. And then at the end of the month, we take a look at how much they sold. If they sold $100,000, we take 7% of that and then subtract out the pay that we paid them on their biweekly checks, and then that's their commission bonus. It might be if it's $7,000, we paid them $3,500, on their paycheck, they'll get a $3,500 payday bonus. Sales is, basically strictly commission when you factor it in, in the bigger scope. That really, that's an investment. We get a salesperson, and if as long as they're booking at least, $60,000 a month, they're starting to make some money, and it's basically just I try to keep sales under 8% of my revenue. So, 7% is the highest commission threshold that we have. And so, they get what they sell. As far as like admin and ops, try to keep that under 10% of revenue. And that includes a
Mhm.
salary for myself, but anybody who's not directly tied to commissions, like our ops manager slash GM, we've allocated 3 out of that 10% to him. Ashley, chief of staff, we've allocated 3 out of that 10% for him. And now we have 4% of revenue left over to delegate out, a dispatcher or, somebody else that is more customer service, VAs, whatever. That kind of gets split up amongst the rest of the office crews. Looking at like 18% of revenue goes towards the sales and administrative and operational salaries. So that's, best way to look at it that I've found is you just base it off of a percent and you get your revenue to a place where you can support that within that budgeted percentile, and then you just hire for your weaknesses. So if you're good at selling but you hate dispatching and you hate scheduling and you hate handling claims and operations, then hire out for those positions first. But some people love that stuff, and so but they're not good at selling, or they are uncomfortable, doing that side of it, and so they'll hire salespeople. But that's what I would suggest, is just looking at your revenue and then figuring out, here's how much money I have to spend, what area needs it the most, that's going to help us increase that revenue or free up more of my time or grow. Because if you're not hiring out those roles and delegating, then you're just going to bottleneck yourself or another person on the team. Eventually you get to a point where you have to kind of take that leap and you just have to, find the right person and take a little bit of a risk. But that's why we're business owners, is because we don't mind taking risks, at least calculated ones.
Like risk, like doing dangerous stuff.
That's right.
Cool, man. Yeah. I have an appetite for things that can kill me. But yeah.
Cool. Well, we are kind of coming up on time. I don't know if you're pressed at all. My only other questions that I had were related to marketing, who your ideal customers were and what else you're doing besides the networking piece to try to get in front of them.
So we've done a lot of Google AdWords since we started. And then now my sister, Angelina, she used to live in Florida. She came here. Oh yeah, she's here. She was in September with me.
Hi.
I don't know if you met her.
No, I don't think so.
So she to help me grow the company. We kind of talked about, so I'll try it for 3 months. It's going on 3 years now. It worked.
Moving has a tendency to suck people in once they get into it. I definitely warn people that are trying to get in, if they're wanting a job or something, I'm like, you might think this is a temporary job, but it'll suck you in.
Nah.
Yeah.
You won't get out easily.
I love the dynamic of it, and I love that I have a lot of freedom of space. Like today, I woke up at 8 a.m.
Nice.
And but I'm going on a business lunch and that kind of stuff, and I love that I don't have a glass ceiling. I can go and go and go as much as I want. So as far as military work, I'm getting really into the nitty gritty as different license that we can have to get, not license, what are they called? Like certifications as a small business to get more government work and federal contracts with the Department of Defense. So it's been really interesting.
Love that.
She's studying and networking to find us government work. So she's also connecting with realtors. She's going to SBA meetings. So Angelina's work is like outside of everything that's outside of our usual marketing. That's like AdWords, Andy's List, all of the internet stuff, which is typically customers don't plan for more than a month ahead, right? So so she's been chipping away at that for
2 years.
For 2 years, yeah. Once you learn the work, really, it took a bit for her to get into what we were trying to do, but now she's been chipping away at it, and there's good things coming. That's another marketing thing. That's like a long-term investment we talked about. It's important also to see that, sometimes the money doesn't come in right away. It's something I have to talk to her about. I'm like, Angelina, we're working on a long-term goal that is going to pay you for a long time, but you're going to have to work with it's a funny position because I'm her older brother, and then I get to be like, look, don't get pissed at me. Like, I can show you the books. Like, you can look at the bank account. Like, we're barely, but it's going to come. So she stays motivated through that. And it's been amazing to have her on the team because it's something that my mind, it's a long-term thing. And she has a whole set of qualities that I don't have. And she's sticking to it. And so that's another big thing that we've been working on for a while. And now kind of taking from what you're doing and a bunch of other people is like, I want to put my face out there. I want to be on podcasts. I want to be on realtor podcasts. I'm starting to do that.
Nice.
So I see that the value. And before I was like, hell no, I don't want to be on Instagram. With all this, what I mean? Like looking at the phone.
But customers want to see that. They want to see you're a real person and they want to do business with real people, not just a faceless company.
Correct. But at the same time, I think like spending all my day on Instagram is a waste of time. So for me, it's like a negotiation with my own, what I think is right and what is good. Okay, no, actually, this is going to be a great thing. It's really important. I mean, when I got into the business, man, nobody gave two shits about movers, right? We never had there was no hype around this business. And it's cool that now there is media around it. There's podcasts, there's all this conversation. It's a massively relevant part of the economy and business, like transportation. I say, man, I always say this to people, like, it works so well that you don't even have to think about it. Your food's there, your furniture's there, all your shit's there just because it works like clockwork. If it wasn't so reliable, you would be thinking about it and it would be horrible because that's what our lives depend on. So it's really cool. I find great that now there is media around moving, and I'm going to start getting into it more. That's another thing that I start doing this year as well.
I love that. And I mean, you could start your own podcast with the realtors and stuff in your, because realtors love the attention and the spotlight, I've found. And I get, I talk to some that have me and they start their own little YouTube channels or podcasts or whatever, social media channels, and they'll come and want to do a 15, 20-minute little Q&A with me. But they go around to all kinds of different service businesses and things like that. And, that's the name of the game. I mean, and if anything, it's a calling card to just connect with people. Like, we haven't really had a chance to have a one-on-one conversation in depth, at least until now, but it's all because of the podcast. Well, you could do the same thing with realtors. You could just create a local, a Wahoo real estate podcast type of thing, or a Wahoo Titans of business type of podcast, where all you really do is use it as a calling card to connect with them and to have a conversation with them. And then you can start to build that relationship. There's a ton of potential with those types of things, whether it's a short little social media thing that lasts 2 minutes or a longer form YouTube or podcast type format. I mean, the sky's the limit. There's so many different ways to do it now. And it's just a really good excuse to get those touches in and build those relationships. And then ChatGPT, when it comes to like learning about the government work and the commercial work and the how to put together a proposal for, things like that. I've built entire templates to get in vendor packets and to get on vendor lists for commercial work and FF&E and all that sort of a thing. And I learned it all through ChatGPT, as well as, connecting with other movers and things like that. But it helps you formulate those posts, come up with strategies, get your, everything down to the font of what a vendor packet should look like if you're going after a commercial move. It's a very helpful resource. So I would definitely suggest leaning into that if you don't already.
Yeah, Angelina.
Yeah, I keep it all the time.
It's been immensely beneficial, man, being able to look at people. Like, now it's closer, right? Because it didn't used to be. It was only the people I knew personally. But to be able to learn from people who are a few steps ahead of me has been immensely beneficial to me, and also helped me just get around that it's a slow process, right? Growth. And it's been really beneficial. It helps me relax too, to think about, be like, no, a little bit this year, a little bit that year, and event, like, everybody that's really gotten to a point, I'm not going to say enviable, but an admirable position in the business is like, dude, I got this team, where you can say, man, the team as its own entity, the company has a life of its own outside of just your daily energy. That's what I mean. Like, somewhere where I can look and be like, that's a cool business, right? Has been in the business, or at least in that position of an owner, for 10 plus years. And it kind of made me realize, I'm like, okay, I'm on a good track. We're building things with quality. And again, another thing that I think that Lewis used to say is, like, never look at the competition like they're doing this. I don't, I'm like, I look at what I'm doing, and I base the feedback that we're having from our customers and from our team as fuel to grow. Because I can never, try and copy what the next guy is doing. And just having this positive, just this communication, like what we're doing, and also what, Mark and Steve are doing, and just having media around it is fantastic. Something I can show my team. Look, what do you think of this? Oh, this is cool. Like, these ideas that before you either had to experience everything over years to have that and be able to talk to somebody about it. Now you can quickly be part of the conversation in a lot shorter time. It's been really cool, man. I dig it.
Yeah, I love seeing how much has developed, even, since, like, Lewis, is the first person that brought everybody together and allowed the connections to happen. And then, I started picking up the phone and just asking other movers in other markets that looked like they had cool, successful businesses for advice. And that's what's led to this podcast. And, then we started doing the mastermind meetups and then the retreats. And then, now there's Movified and there's all these other things going on. And if I had to give myself one piece of advice going back to when I first started, it would be to seek out mentorship and try to surround myself with a group of people that were, 30% above me that I could get advice from, that had been where I'm at or where I want to go. 30% of people that are on my level that I can push and hold accountable, and we can be on the journey together. And then 30%, help 30% of people that are below me, because people above me helped me. And you never know if you get a little piece of advice or nuggets, just like we talked about the international moving and the shipping today. I would have never known that stuff. And it's something that I've wanted to learn about. So, it gives me some good insight into those things. Everybody has something to teach you, whether they're ahead of you, on your level, or below you. And then 10%, spend it on your own time, reflecting and meditating and doing the stuff that you like to do, and get involved in hobbies and passions, that you're genuinely interested in. And that's another great way to network, because for me, it's like pickleball and wiffle ball, playing sports, doing, boating. Like, I meet a ton of people that end up turning into people I can do business with in one way or another, because they're doing what they love doing, and it happens to be what I love doing. And that's one of the best ways to network too. It's not forced. You have that common interest with people from all kinds of different walks of life that you might not otherwise come across. And, that's what it's all about. So you're going to be coming out in June to our mastermind in Scottsdale, right? Did I hear that?
I'm really looking forward to that, man. Yes, I am. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we've got a great group of people out there. I think we're up to 15 or 16 people, which is like basically where we started with the Moving Titan Retreat, doing about that size group in giant Airbnb mansions. And I think we've got a few more spots left. I think there's, I don't know how many beds total there are, but anybody who's listening, come meet Gabe out there. It's going to be a ton of fun. There's going to be all kinds of different companies out there, from people that are a little bit smaller, just starting out, all the way up to $10 million plus companies that have been exactly where you might be in the journey. So looking forward to seeing you out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a couple surprises planned for everybody that's going to be there, and ultimately talk moving for a weekend, and also find some fun activities to bond and build that circle of trust and just all push each other to get better. Gabe, if anybody wants to get in touch with you directly, what would be the best way to do so?
Talk to me at my direct line here is my email is Gabe at Hero Moving HI. Again, that's Gabe, Gabe, at Hero Moving HI. And my phone number is 808-650-3458. Again, that's 808-650-3458. You can get a hold of us on Oahu if you need to do any moving, if you need storage. And now we're a cleaning company as well. We do move out and move in cleans.
Oh, sweet.
And, if you want to talk shop, if you want to mountain bike, surf, I do all that kind of stuff, road biking, and I'm always looking for fun partners to do that with. And I love ambitious people. I love people to be around people that get that energy, that they can improve their lives and improve the lives of those around it. It's like we're born with one set of things, and we realize like money is our lifeblood. Without money, we can't do anything. And instead of letting that restrict us, I find that, people who love to build around that. And what you said, to create trust, is really talk to people, get on a personal level. I used to be a very guarded person, man. Like, I didn't want to communicate because prejudices, and I'm learning to get outside of my box. So I really appreciate you having me. Like, really, it's been really fun talking to you. And as the connections get better and more conversation and learning about each other, I'm sure it'll improve a lot. And yeah, come. I'd love to meet, guys in the moving circle. I know everybody comes to Hawaii at some point. Just like when I talk to them, I was there last month. I go to the meetings and the seminars. I was there last year. Do come when you come out here. Talk to me. I'll show you around in ways that are outside of Waikiki and outside of your regular run-of-the-mill kind of places, your tourist places. So it'll be a lot of fun.
I would love to do a surf trip out there, so I might take you up on that whenever I get some time to make that flight. I know it's a haul from Florida, but you made it here, so
yeah.
I very well may take you up on that. We don't have the best surfing, at least on this coast of Florida. And Hawaii is obviously legendary for it. So that'd be great. I'd love to make that happen and come meet Gabe out there in June. I mean, what I love about these events is just it's a circle of trust. You know, we can be vulnerable and open up about the real problems that we're having that never leave that room, but you can get the answers that you need in that room. Doing these types of meetups, even before we started doing our own, I went to a few of them that other people organized, and really was one of the biggest things that totally turned my business around. And so it's going to be awesome. So can't wait to see you out there, Gabe. I ran a little long today, but it was a great conversation, and keep crushing it out there in Oahu. And until next time, I'll see you in a few months.
Thank you so much, Wade. I'll see you in a few months. Have a beautiful rest of your day, man. Thanks for having me. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.